My name is Ralph Wally, and I've been asked to recall a few memories of the early days of the sixth form college. Perhaps I should paint a picture of education in Luton in the 50s and 60s. It was a different world then. We had to do things that under today's rules and regulations would not be permitted. When I joined the technical school staff in 1950, we were in the old modern school building in Park Square. We shared it with the Luton Technical College. We had classrooms in a Wesleyan Methodist chapel in Chapel Street, the youth headquarters in Waller Street, and an old disused fire station in Church Street. We had to build our own workshops, and we had to walk classes from the main building through the town to these places in all weathers. We had two metal workshops, one in an old hat factory in Guildford Street, one in a boiler room in Park Square, and one in a Methodist chapel in Waller Street. I must mention these metal workshops. The one in the boiler room obviously was underground. It had no windows, no ventilation, and with the boilers on it was like an oven. When the wind was in certain direction, the fumes blew back down the chimney and we could not work in there. The pupils had to be sent home. In my second year, we obtained the use of a disused Wesleyan Methodist chapel in Waller Street, but this was no better. We took our equipment across from Park Square in the holidays. We built a metalwork rack in one of the storerooms, loaded our metal onto it, and the whole lot promptly went through the floor into the basement below. There was dry rot in the floorboards. We then discovered, when we started classes, that when it rained, the roof leaked and the water leaked down along the conduit, fused all the lights and the power points, and again we had to send the pupils home. Things slowly improved, and at last, by 1957, we had moved to a new school in Barnfield Avenue. Luton obtained county borough status in 1964, which enabled the authority to reorganise its own school setup. In 1965, there were 10 secondary modern schools, one technical school, which had become a technical grammar actually, and 2 grammar schools. Entry to the tech and grammar schools was by the 11+ examination. Population increase and improved performance had put pressure on places. A league table of grammar school places was published in the national press, and Luton was well down the list. Some form of reorganisation had to take place, and the plan was that the modern schools would become high schools and offer O-levels, and the staffs of the technical school and 2 grammar schools would combine to form a new sixth form college offering A-levels. The college would be housed in the boys' grammar school in Bradgers Hill, and years 2 and 3 in the grammar school would move across to the technical school to complete their O-levels, while years 4 and 5 would remain to complete their O-levels in the college. Even then, lack of space determined that the college would not be open access. 4 O-levels were required to obtain a place. One local politician later called us a snobs' college. It was obvious that all the staff in the 3 schools would not be needed to form the staff of the new college, and in 1965 it had not even been decided what subjects would be offered. This caused much disquiet amongst the staffs, and Dr. Corbett, the Chief Education Officer, met every member of staff involved individually to advise them. The heads of the 3 selective schools retired, and the new headmistress of the high school was offered the post of vice principal of the new college. Some staff applied for jobs with other authorities. Those of us left waited with much uncertainty. For some staff, although salary was protected, there was much ill feeling because status was lost. My appointment as head of technical subjects came through in May 1966, and I was called to a head of department meeting in July. We met in the headmaster's study. Brian Dance, the new principal, introduced himself and then introduced his new deputy, Miss Irvin, and asked us to stand and introduce ourselves and state our department. He then said a few things I well remember. He told us we were pioneers. We would be in the spotlight. Many people would be coming to see what we were doing. Some would be supportive and some would be critical because we were replacing the grammar schools. Therefore, everything we did had to be excellent. The future of sixth form colleges was in our hands. During the summer holidays, the heating and lighting were brought up to date, and cloakroom facilities and toilet facilities for the girls were incorporated. On the 7th of September 1966, the college opened with 256 new lower sixth students and 390 fourth and fifth year grammar school boys. To say that first year was chaotic would be a gross understatement. Rooms had to be cleared of all unwanted books and equipment. Desks and chairs for 11-year-olds were no use for 16 to 18-year-olds. Many classrooms had to be cleaned also. Staff from the girls' high school had to teach boys for the first time, and many staff from the boys' grammar school had to teach girls, a culture shock for some older staff who later left the college. Many staff and students had to find their way in a building that was new to them, and as each student had an individual timetable, chaos ensued. Staff from the technical school and the girls' high school appointed to the college staff who had taught fourth-year pupils in their previous school travelled back and forth to complete their fifth-year courses. In some cases, it was the students who had to travel and coaches were provided. I was very lucky. When the boys' grammar school building opened in 1938, I was one of the first 11-year-olds to start my secondary education there. I left school in 1945, and after service in the RAF and teacher training in London, I joined the staff of the technical school in 1950, as I have said previously. I undertook part-time lecturing in Luton College of Technology in building, construction and carpentry and joinery, and I also lectured to Luton teachers in audio-visual aids, so I knew the grammar school building well and quite a few of the new staff and had contacts with firms and other establishments. This proved most useful. The facilities for technical subjects were far better in the technical school, which was only 9 years old, so A-level technical drawing and metalwork were undertaken there. Very little money was available for improvements at the college, so we had to make do with what we had. In February 1967, the principal asked me to draw plans for a new workshop complex. This I did, and with minor alterations, the authority accepted the proposals. After the Easter holiday, I was informed that hutted accommodation for infants had taken priority over my workshops. The principal asked me not to resign, but could I do anything with the existing workshop? I told him if he would provide me with an industrial vacuum cleaner and a cartridge gun, get the authority to change the electrics and put in 2 sinks and hot water, I would, during the holidays, partition the workshop into 2 smaller rooms, one for metalwork and one for woodwork. This I did. I now had a metalwork and woodwork room, and I was allocated half a hut for technical drawing. So machinery and equipment for A-level work was moved from my old workshops at the Tech across to the college. During the next holidays, I also partitioned a large physics lab into 2 smaller ones, and I built 2 tuck-shop bars in the student common rooms with materials I scrounged from various sources. We had no furniture for students' common room, but one of my ex-students had a father at the airport, and he obtained 20 old aircraft seats we used for seating. I must mention the decoration. I believe the building had been decorated only once in 27 years. It was decided that parts would be decorated during the first summer holidays. We prepared our rooms, but when we moved freestanding cupboards, we discovered outlines to show that the walls had been painted and with the cupboards in situ. Also, stockroom doors had been painted closed, so an outline of the previous paint showed round the edge of the door. In my case, when I started back in September, the paint in the workshops was still wet. Lack of equipment and facilities still posed a problem. I think the Education Committee thought that everything required for sixth form teaching could be moved to the college. They did not realise that much equipment was used also for other pupils in lower classes. I recall that first summer we had 80 students sitting their biology A-level exam. We had only 5 stop clocks for the students, and Cambridge rules required 1 per 6 students. Any subject involving practicals experienced similar difficulties. Assemblies were held every Wednesday, and students met their tutor groups every morning for registration. Every Wednesday, visitors came to see what we were doing. It was, of course, the swinging 60s, so the question most asked by those critical of sixth form colleges was, how many girls have become pregnant? We answered none, and in many cases the disappointment showed. Slowly we sorted things out, and as the 4th and 5th year pupil boys completed their O-levels, we had only 6th formers to contend with, and things became less fraught. One thing that struck me at this time was the talent of the student population. Our 6th form at the Tech was about 50 students. We could muster 5 or 6 musicians and 3 or 4 thespians. Now we had 256 students and enough musicians for an orchestra or thespians for a play, and the performances they put on were first class. Sport also played a great part in college life in those early days. Soccer, rugby and cricket thrived. Wednesday afternoons were given to sport, and we took students to Biddenham to play golf, to Watford for the dry ski slopes, to the sports centre at Lothair Road for squash and tennis. We managed to get a Bedford minibus, and 5 of us went to the police station at Kempston for a course on advanced driving so we could drive the students. I remember the vehicle was a pig to drive, as you needed both hands to change gear. The students in those early days were magnificent. They showed a maturity, commitment and loyalty beyond their years. They didn't take advantage of the many problems that arose. Their achievements were outstanding, and they set the standards that have been maintained over the years. In 1973, Alan Davis and I were appointed as first senior tutors at the college. Alan took responsibility for the upper 6 and UCCA reports, and I took responsibility for the lower 6 students and admissions. I held this position until I retired from teaching in 1985. I come back to the words of Brian Dance at that first head of department meeting all those years ago. The future of sixth form colleges was in our hands, and everything we did had to be excellent. He had a most difficult task, for he experienced much opposition. He had to get staff from 3 schools to work together. He had very limited finance. The success of the college was built on his dedication, expertise and values. Luton sixth form, there are now over 96 form colleges. Luton sixth form college has gone from strength to strength, and over all those years has enhanced its reputation for excellence. I like to think that all those years ago we must have done something right.
Oh, can I ask you a little bit about the flagpole?
Yeah.
I've been told I must get the flagpole story from you.
Well, look, is this running?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I'll put this down for the moment.
Okay.
I'll put it away. And I'll do one now so that you can include it.
Yeah.
When I was a pupil at the sixth form college, of course, VE Day took place. And we arrived in the morning and were told that we could have the afternoon off and go down into the town. Unfortunately, the pulley at the top of the flagpole had jammed, and so a ladder was fetched, and I volunteered to go up the ladder, release the pulley so that the flag could be flown. That was obviously 1945.